Hey friends, how are we doing today? Just got off another very long call. Why was the call long? Well, let me explain to you, okay? Many people who are learned, all right, they get to a certain point where they realize that, as far as education's concerned, okay, and by education I mean in regard to commercial matters or in regard to legal matters, things like that, okay? That they have a level of knowledge that supersedes or, exceeds 99% of the populations. The vast majority of people have a tendency to want to just keep talking. They're not interested in actually learning anymore. It can be frustrating dealing with people like that. Usually I sit still and listen. Why? Because Proverbs says a fool is only concerned with the revealing of his own thoughts. I don't want to be that guy. If you think you know more than me, I'm going to shut up. Go ahead. Spend the next 25, 30, 40 years, maybe even never of your life, never actually figuring out the things that you could have learned from a guy like me or an educated man, wise man, had you shut up for 5 minutes and listened. I used to hang out with my father, very educated man, especially for around his people, because we don't tend to be very educated as Native Americans within reservation boundaries. And again, it's designed that way. That's how come you have a tribal council who literally engages in apartheid against their own people, decimating their own numbers because they're too ignorant to understand the evil behind blood quantum requirements, or even what apartheid means. But anyway, I digress. So, hanging around my father and men generally 20, 30 years older than me, I started to develop an ear for their lexicon and their jargon and the things that they discussed. But by the age of about 12 or 13 years old, I realized that it was very difficult to relate to people my own age. Why? Because we didn't think about the same things. I was used to having adult conversations and thinking on a level 2, 3, 4 steps above most. I was learning four-letter words when I was a kid, and all I did was read. Every study hall I used to read a book. About an hour. But I could get through a Louis L'Amour classic in about an hour when I was in 7th, 8th, 9th grade. So, when you start to read and you get an ear for it and you love learning and, all these different things, it's kind of a blessing and a curse at the same time. But what is this video about? This one's about who's actually in control at the very top. And to be able to understand that, I'm going to keep this under 10 minutes. Okay? But this has to do with theology. It has to do with law. It has to do with all these so-called sovereign citizen arguments and everything else. You just don't know it. Why? Because you were raised in an educational system that was designed to indoctrinate you. Especially if you were educated on an Indian reservation. Okay? So let me explain. To understand the Mato Nation, you have to understand the history of churches and organizations like that on this earth. Okay? And you have to have a hyperactive understanding of the scriptures, law, and history all at the same time. If you're not willing to learn these things, then you deserve to be an ignorant slave. Okay? And if you do learn these things, it's going to come to a point like with me where they blackball you. They cancel your social security number. They try to make sure that you can't make a living. Why? Because they don't want you talking about things that you're talking about. They don't want you educating people. They certainly don't want you educating pastors or castigating them because they're doing Satan's work on earth. What do I mean by that? I mean the 501c3. Anything that you sign as a contract, pastors, you and I both know, 99% of you know you're on the wrong Sabbath day. You know that there is a history behind the James 16:11, the pedophile, the homosexual whose greatest work was on the occult, who created that, King James. Yet you don't correct your people. You don't tell them the importance of knowing the law. You like to claim that the law was done away with, that it showed up in Leviticus. Yes, somehow Noah knew what was clean and unclean when he brought him on the ark. And then you don't realize, or at least you will not share with your congregations, the fact that Asus was a Celtic deity. According to Ezekiel, we're not to allow the names of foreign Elohim to even come out of our mouths. How do I know this about the common Christian religions? It's because I was a Mormon for 30 years. I wrote a book on it, The Lamanites' War. Mato, you can find it somewhere. There was like 2 book sales. I think I was one of them. But anyway, It was the story of my coming out of Mormonism, understanding how it's a cult, how it's part of Satan's plan. I believe Joseph Smith's part where he says he saw an angel of light. Go read the scriptures. It says Satan masquerades as an angel of light. So you have at the very top the Vatican. Pope wears a mitre on his head, fish head. It's a sun deity, Ra. These are all pagan deities, people. You have good, you have evil. You have the seed of man, you have the seed of the serpent. Yes, literal seed of the serpent. You're saying we have reptilians? Yes, I believe we have reptilians. I also know that beyond the ice walls, there's other lands and other ice walls. Have you ever read Gulliver's Travels? Have you ever read all these different lores? Have you read through the scriptures where it says that the sons of Noah became, or Shem, one of them, became mighty men in the earth? Have you ever read The Smoky God? The other things that you need to understand is that at the very top of all these things, you have a group of people, according to Revelation 2:9 and 3:9, who call themselves Jews, but are of the synagogue of Satan. They appear to be wholesome. They appear to be doing the right things at all times, but really, unfortunately, is Satan at their realm, at the very top. Whether it's the Rothschilds or whether it's Satan's people out of Astana. 200 seats at the top of their pyramid. How many angels were fallen angels? You got to read Enoch. You got to read all the scriptures, all 88 books in the Ethiopian text. And ideally, you want to read these things in the actual language, not the Greek and the Latin, which bastardizes things and changes them. So, I've had my theology change quite a bit over my lifetime. And I would have never learned about the difference between a 14th Amendment U.S. citizen slave, a juristic person, had I not been charged with a bullshit statutory offense. Didn't know how to defend myself in court. Didn't understand evidence. Didn't understand any of the procedures. Why? Because I was a law-abiding man. I've always been a law-abiding man. So why would I even have to deal with it? Yet the scriptures say in Matthew and Luke, woe to the lawyers and the teachers of the law. I harp on this quite a bit, often as much as I do against pastors who preach false narratives. But if you're out here as a gatekeeper and you're charging thousands of dollars to desperate people who are just trying to keep themselves out of these private prisons because they don't understand this admiralty bullshit, you're going to probably go to hell with kerosene pants, in my opinion. Yusuf L's got $50 a month. I think that's reasonable for somebody to have access to the amount of information he has. I think he's a good guy. I think he tries real hard. I think half of these assholes out here are just self-aggrandizing jerks who want nothing more than fame and notoriety for themselves. My plate says servant. That's the mentality that I have. That's why I take phone calls from veterans in crisis. That's why I left the phone number on the video. I talk to my people through the means of the methods that are available to me, but as a law-abiding man, that's how I conduct myself, with honor in all things. But I don't deal with bullshit. I don't take it from people, especially servants. But my primary duty is to educate you as to the narrow path that leads to eternal life, and salvation, versus the wide path. That's why I tell my members, especially the young men, don't date divorcees. It's a sin. Yes, that pisses divorcees off. Why? Because they thought the grass was greener, they destroy their marriage, and then they go out and they either repeat the process or they want some guy to take them seriously when there's still all these other women out here who haven't done that to their husbands yet. Why would we choose you with all the baggage that comes along with it? I want to make it en vogue to where being a divorcee means that you essentially will have no life. You'll be a social leper after that point with all men who are intelligent. Why? Because you're already a proven poor chooser of men, or just a loser or a liar who can't keep your wedding vows. And men, and 90% of prison populations being raised by single mothers, are paying for it. And 99% of we men are done with that nonsense. That's why to create an actual Motto village, you have to have 12 men. 7 of them have to be veterans. Why? Because women don't vote in our tribe. It's unscriptural. It's not their duty. And yeah, I don't care if you like it or not, but if you're not willing to have kids and actually help us build families, you're just not part of our demographic. Go do your thing and leave us alone. We're not interested. Thanks anyway. But As I told my sons, and I tell all young men, no hymen, no diamond. I don't care if it pisses people off. She couldn't keep her vows to the Most High. That expectation, she was born with her value if she could keep it, but she decided she wanted to get out here and do her thing, be of the world, and then she wants some guy to come in and save her from all of her bad decisions. Great, I'm sure you'll find some chimpanzee that will do it. But this pastor will never advocate for that. I advocate for young men to keep yourselves pure for marriage, have only one wife. That's what the scriptures say. And make sure that you're out here doing the world a favor by raising good youngins, conservative youngins who think. They're not indoctrinated. They refuse to actually answer the question themselves. Why do I have to sign something? Why do I have to contract with somebody? Because that's how they separate and sell and buy the souls of men in the last days. These bar cartel members. Anything tied to your social security number is a contract. And I say your social security number, I mean that all caps name, entity, which has a corporate state at the top of it. That's who owns it, not you. You may use it. You're the beneficiary, so you can use it to tap in. That's your card onto the monopoly board. They own that money. That's theirs. That's why every Mato village has a ledger. We trade in our wampum. It's private. It's got nothing to do with them. They have allopathic medicine. Great, go do your thing. We have natural medicine. It's none of your business. Our Constitution is private, and it conforms to the Constitution for the Republic. End of discussion. We're law-abiding Americans. You don't need to know anything else, servants. All you need to know is that that village over there, you get 50% discounts if you're a U.S. citizen public servant. If it's fresh fruits and vegetables, we grow them at every village. There's only one village in every county. The outer wall adopts the borders of the de jure county. The inner wall, that's the land we actually trade on, and it's private. All of it's private. And I just had this discussion with another, man who's a learned man of the Most High. He says, well, you can't just create your own society. It's like, why not? Happens all the time. The Amish do it. They're just not, and by the way, they're considered domestic terrorists by this government because they don't conform. Anybody that doesn't conform. Are you starting to get the picture now? Through the banks, through all businesses, through everything. They control it. It's not you. It's not we the people. The only thing that you control is a Mato Village ledger and all the private stuff that you put in it. And every year on the Feast of First Fruits, Mato Ministries, who owns the wampum, we return 99% of the value of that wampum to every village based on their contributions individually. You're starting to see the math, starting to see why it's essential that it has to be a church at the top that owns the wampum. Because the Catholic Church, they own all of the U.S. dollars. According to Jan Halper Hayes, when she was doing an interview in England, she said, it took us 650 plane loads to get our gold out of the Vatican. So let me wrap this up. I'm going to share with you what's going on the national level. You have to figure out why there's 45-47 on Trump's hat, not 45-47. He's on his third term. You've been watching a military operation since his first term. If you look at Hillary, quote unquote, fainting in front of the van, I believe she was handcuffed, if you watch that video very closely. Why? Because they were arrested for what? All their crimes. This stuff was happening back in 1963. Now, whether or not all the other Q stuff is true, who knows? We're going to find that out. But I do believe we've been watching a military operation. Here's the only question from a scriptural perspective that is yet to be answered definitively. Okay? Is Trump controlled opposition? Or is he Yahuwah's hammer to come in here when the Trump sounds? Yes, I make that connection. I don't think it's an accident. But is he the one that comes in here, and is he the one that actually destroys, not only drains the deep swamp that was in D.C., but the worldwide pedophilia rings and all these other Satanists who are out here kidnapping children to the tune of $880,000 a year in the U.S. alone through the CPS systems, these corporations based out of D.C. that our bar cartel members actually operate in family law courts? Only time will tell. You can read Title 10, you can read Title 50. And in there it will explain to you the instances in which and how the federal government can come in, work with the military, put down insurrections and other things. If you look at the timeline, he passed all the executive orders against election interference slowly or just shortly before 2020 election. Why? So he could set them up. He knew they were going to try to steal it. So he set them up. And again, they took the bait. He was able to get all the evidence and all the other players, go in, take their assets under that law. Boom. We own Greenland. We own Canada. We own probably Australia and a lot of other things. But until the actual script is laid out for everybody in a way that they can accept, right? Because we are still the most heavily armed standing army on the planet, the American people. He didn't want to have a revolution. What would happen if you had that many pissed off people that saw everything, all the evidence? These kids being harmed, these families being destroyed, and they're all by people in black robes that have taken an oath to the British accredited registry. I wouldn't be surprised to see wholesale indictments coming across, maybe even mobile courts, mobile prosecutors to come in and take care of all the foreigners who used to be Americans but lost their nationality under Title 18, I believe, or 28, 454, 1452. It says loss of nationality for anybody who's taken an oath to a foreign state. Why? Because it's treason. You took an oath to the Republic if you're an elected official. But the judge, so-called judge I was talking to in the court the other day, he's an administrator. He works for a foreign corporation. Wasn't even properly oathed in. Couldn't find an actual charter for Missoula County, which is not to be confused with the county of Missoula, the de jure. Been there for 100 years prior to county of Missoula. What's the difference? The difference is that you either live by Yahuwah's law or you live by man's law. Pastors, hello? If you don't know the difference between a U.S. citizen slave, which is a sin to be because you're not supposed to be a debtor, and an American Indian national, it's because you're ignorant of the law. You're ignorant of history, and you're especially ignorant of Scripture. Yeah, I'm calling you out on it. I can prove everything that I contend, friends. And for all of you who keep giving donations of the 50-cent march, you guys just amaze me. I got to tell you that. You're incredible. You really are. I mean, it's evidence right there. And again, it goes to you and your people. Okay? And when you get your ledger set up, that's the funding drive I want you guys to get behind. Okay? I need you to walk through this so you can actually get this. Wrap your mind around it. 99%, I said, goes back to each village proportional to what they earned. So, you get yourselves a Motto Village Council, and then you get yourselves a Cash App. You can start donating to the Motto Ministries Cash App for that particular village. And who owns the village? You do. You're starting to connect the dots. You need to have a Motto Ministries, Motto Village in your county stood up, and then you can start donating to your own church. You guys own 99% of everything ultimately that is created out of there. Yes, there's 10% fee that's charged, but again, the Feast of First Fruits, 99% of all profits are returned to you. It's your church. It's not mine. You don't follow the chief. The chief's nobody and nothing special. Just a father of, 2 amazing sons. Lost one daughter to alienation. But other than that, nobody and nothing special. Just somebody doing Yahuwah's work on earth as best I can, but fallible in my own ways. Don't claim to be perfect. Won't pretend to be perfect. Cuss too much. Probably smoke too much. Chew too much. Don't play enough guitar. Don't do the things I should be doing out there just to live life to the fullest without any of these things. But gosh, if I don't come up and actually start fighting against these dark forces, which one of you is going to stand up and do it? That's why I said I don't care about you dilettantes who have an opinion you're not willing to stand in the fire. Save your blather for somebody who cares. Nobody cares. You're losers. Nobody will ever remember your name. I don't intend to do this for self-aggrandizement. That's why, again, it says servant on the plate. Not master, not nothing else. Chief is a title. I'm the chief servant. The head servant. Get that through your heads. Not here to become a wealthy man, not here to become famous. here to do the things that I said I would do, not only as a U.S. military veteran, but also as the pastor for the Most High, as fallible as I am and unworthy. So for all of you who continue to send your 50 cents, you guys, again, you crack me up. I can't tell you how much I laugh when I see that. I was like, that right there is the best evidence you could ever give anybody, is keep watching how fast that cha-ching, 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 because that's evidence. Yeah, you know what? I might not be a rich person, but shit, yeah, I agree with your message. For all of you who keep using the phone number to come up, call, whatever, and you're welcome to do that. You know, like I said, I love hearing from you. I love having the support. For you who want to come visit, again, come visit anytime you want. It's Wild Horse Hot Springs out in Hot Springs, Montana. Spend a lot of time there. Spend a lot of time visiting other places. But if you want to come out, do seminars, anything else, you're welcome to come and do that. I have a good friend, Lewis Ewing. If he puts on a seminar, he charges what he charges for it, but we're happy to set that up. I'm about making businesses thrive. I'm about helping people to come together, get off the phones, actually start having dialogue again, and being human. That's what we're about, okay? So I share this message in the spirit of love in which it is intended, and thank you again for your time. Shalom in Yahushua's name.